Welcome back. Let's talk about the power sector. The minister has been making statements during the briefing that happened yesterday. And if there's any sector that has defied literally every government, is the power sector in terms of electricity generation. Now, the current government had actually decentralized a few things where states now have the capacity to do everything the federal government does at the state level. But not all states are ready for it. Some have done that, they've handed over to their own state Electricity Regulatory Commission, and some are in the works. That's the effort of the government to see how this can be decentralized as much as possible. But power is still a big challenge. If you talk about availability, accessibility, pricing, and cost, that is really eating deep into Nigerians' pocket. But let's bring in the Deputy Chairman, House Committee on Power, a member representing Lavon Idati Mokwa Federal Constituency in Niger State, also a member of the National Institute in Kurujos. Dr. Joshua Gana. Mr. Gana, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you. Good morning. It's nice to be here.
All right, let's begin with your quick reaction, because you, since you're a member of the subcommittee, you oversight that sector. The minister has made a big claim that the average Nigerian will say maybe it's a lie, but you do the oversight work, so you have empirical data. 150 million Nigerians now have access to adequate electricity. I want your reaction to that statement.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, based on the statistics that they use to see most of the load centers that will have available power in the distribution network from transmission, speaks to most of the urban areas that are connected. And when you check their population status, it presupposes that about 150 million people will have access to it. Now, access doesn't mean that power is in everybody's house at that same time, but that if they get connected through their distribution companies, those who have settled disconnection fees and all the other local issues have the opportunity to have available power restored to their locations. So it might be, 150 million might be over the top in my own opinion, but I'm sure he was speaking to statistics given by his staff who report the amount of power given to different load centers around the country.
Okay, so now that that's out of the way, one of the things I would like us to dig deep into, because we're still going to probe that as well. I don't believe it, but he has said it. Because when you're talking about 150, Nigeria's population of an average of 200 million, if we get 150 people having adequate electricity, then we will not be complaining. That has covered literally a major part of the country. So that data sounds more political than empirical to me, but I'm not going to debate it since I don't have a counter argument for him at the moment. But let's talk about the one that really eats deep into the fabric of Nigerians, and that has to do with the cost of electricity. Right now, for the people that have it, there are two complaints. The complaint of, especially those on Ban A, I'm on Ban A, I'm also complaining that it's too expensive. On the second part is the fact that when you are even on this Ban A, you don't have enough electricity as promised. The promise was, I think, 20 or 22 hours per day. That's the average you should get. But you get less than that, and then you're still charged on Ban A. So as a committee in the House of Representatives, how is the committee taking the issue of complaints about the high cost of electricity? He's defending to the fact that the sector needs money, and they've been able to generate, I think, 700 billion or so last year alone, and that has really shored up a few things for them. But the customers, consumers like us, are at the receiving end, and it's no longer comfortable.
Okay, yes. It's no longer comfortable because in the past, power was subsidized. There was a power subsidy fund, but during this administration, most of those things that have been under subsidy have been removed. So from the petroleum subsidy was removed, power subsidy was removed, and so that brought about the cost going down to the customer. But it's clear that the tariff regime we are in is what we call the cost-reflective tariff regime, where the cost of fuel, the cost of capacity, the energy costs are all passed through the system to the distribution company to make collections for power delivered to people. And so the policy document that was being driven at the time was to say there are certain areas where the equipment, all through from fuel to generation to transmission to distribution and going to the end users, the installations are all in good shape. Why don't you prioritize those people and put them on a certain band because they are willing and able to pay for power and not go to a second source of power? So that was the policy drive that led, and it was an agreement of the Ministry of Power with distribution companies to say, for where you have said you have good equipment and you can deliver uninterrupted power, can you go to those customers and tell them within this amount of hours per day, I can give you uninterrupted power, but pay me this cost-effective tariff? And I assure you that within 24 hours, within 2 to 4 hours, we might just have some downtime, which are things that have to be properly managed. People have to understand how power works. If you don't have sustainable source of fuel, and your fuel goes down to change to another source of fuel, you're going to have downtime in power. And so that was accounting for the 2 to 4 hours, because shutting down a power plant that is gas-fired takes a lot of time to cool down, and then you're ramping up from another location, another power plant to resupply the power that's just gone down from maybe a gas-fired power plant that was being turned down, and maybe a hydroelectric one is coming up. So with that time of exchange is what accounts for the downtime in power. So, but even I am on band A, and yes, it is a bite, and before it becomes something that people would understand, even I am affected by band A. And it's, I'm going through what every Nigerian who's on band A with the cost-reflective tariff. We must be able to pay for power is the principle that they are guiding. Nigerians have been used to, in time past, Nigerian government subsidizing the power or power given free to them in order to pacify Nigerians. That advent has begun to shut down, and we're coming to an advent where we must pay for the cost-reflective tariff in order to pay for power. Now, the cost of fuel, if you're saying gas-fired power plants, the cost of fuel is in dollars. And you can imagine the inflation and the exchange rate issues that we have for the cost of fuel. Then the cost of generation. 1 megawatt installation of power for a power plant now is nearly $2 million per megawatt hour. But you can say in the range of $1.7, $1.8 million to a megawatt hour. Then the cost of even transporting power, just the right of ways from the location of because in the principle of power, locating a power plant is nearness to source of fuel, and then you transport from there to the population centers. So population centers might be a bit far off, given our national grid network. And so before you have the right of ways through people's communities all the way to your tie-in centers, you have a lot of compensations to pay, and then even during the time of construction, you have all sorts of vandals stealing the steel that is being installed. Many times the minister will have to send the military to go and be on daily guard. Those are costs that were not envisaged, but because you have to guard the Nigerian assets, the civil defense is there, the military is there to guard those assets until the contractor is able to finish building the transmission line and connect. And so these are issues that take time. We plead with Nigerians to be patient, as we generate income, I'm sure there will be more output of power to our people.
I'm glad you mentioned those challenges, sir. And this is where I'd like you to, if possible, do a reality check for this proclaimed achievements under this administration in the power sector. Yes, it's a good thing that we're recording 1,800 megawatts, but as Jeffrey has said, is what is being generated, what is being transmitted in reality, and that will be where the result is. And the claim that past administrations were only able to have not been able to increase record power generation of megawatts in 35 years may not be entirely true if you consider that under former President Goodluck Jonathan, I believe in 2015, there was installed generation capacity of about 9,000 megawatts. But what was transmitted was maybe significantly lower than that at that time, but perhaps higher than what is being transmitted now. So I'd like you to speak to that buck passing, so to speak, about blaming past administrations for the challenges in the power sector when you consider collapsed power grids that we've recorded record number of times under this administration. I'd like you to do some reality check, if possible.
Okay. Past administrations have also done very well in investing in the power sector. We have had competent people in charge of the power sector, and there was significant investment also to resolve the problems. Where I see the gaps that we suffer from, it was because of the number of agencies that were involved in their development. The coordination at the time was not well managed. For instance, you are locating gas-fired power plants at different locations in Nigeria, and those locations do not have ready gas facilities to inject gas into those generation plants. Now, the lead time to build a gas-fired power plant is about 3 years. And so within 3 years, it's expected that from whatever gas source or gas field, the gas pipelines are being built to that location within the same time that you know that plant will be ready to be fired and start delivering power to the grid. So at the same time, the Transmission Company of Nigeria should be also building transmission lines so that power could be wheeled out and evacuated to the load centers for distribution, to the distribution networks to be sold. And so there was no coordination as such, because coordinating all these things at the same time was a very huge investment. Imagine building gas pipelines at the same time, using a power plant. At the same time, you're trying to get right-of-ways for transmission lines, and you're building the transmission lines. Then the substations that this heavy-duty power will be fed into before it is stepped down to lower capacities of transformers to be distributed for sales. All that takes quite a lot of time. So I would say there was no coordination at the time to ensure that by the time a gas pipeline is being finished, the source of fuel is, they have cleaned up the gas that they are getting from the oil well or from the gas field, and is being fed into that system. The receiving station is ready to pump it into the power station that is being finished. They have tested and fired some of the gas turbines to say they are strong enough, it meets the capacity to sell. And then the transmission lines also are ready to take it and evacuate it to where power will be sold. So I don't know why in detail, because I've been to the field for oversight, and when we ask the different contractors, are you people discussing with each other? Are you within the time you're supposed to be paid and deliver this? Is before this power plant is built and finished. And when you hear the different answers, we take these reports back, and as Parliament, we sound out our warnings to the executive to say there seems not to be any coordination, and the deliverables on these contracts will not meet the timelines that Nigerians are waiting for. Now, imagine building it's a 4-year tenure for every administration, and it takes 3 years to build a power plant. Before you solve the other balance of plant issues, your 4 years is over.
And another
administration
is in. And that speaks to some of the deep challenges of the power sector. And it's very important to unbundle the issues, right? So we're able to really understand where our challenges lie and how we need to tackle them. But for the everyday Nigerian, it is as simple as, well, we elected a government, or a government is in place, in any case, to ensure that these things are sorted, right? So it shouldn't really be my headache. My headache should be paying for power and having power, not having palpitations that they will soon take power, as is now the case. But I want to go back to the earlier issue that we started with the Minister of Power. Again, understanding the position he's in, every word he says would normally be attacked, because people will pour the frustration they are feeling with power supply into whatever he says naturally. Yes. That's what it just means, being in that position. Yes. But when he says that 150 million Nigerians have access to power and that 80 million do not have adequate access to power in Nigeria, there are questions about the population figures. Are we 240 million indeed? But what I want you to speak to is this. There have been research and reports that show that either between 40 and 75% of Nigerians rely on generator for power generation. Okay. So even if you account for that data, and it really messes up the 150 million that the minister is putting out there, you get, because 50% is already 100 million of Nigerians already that don't have access to power. So I want you to speak to the data that you have based on the work that you do, and that's where I'm going to. By the way, Nigerians listening out there, if you want to let us know your power situation, if you have access, you can send your message to our WhatsApp line. We have a WhatsApp line, by the way, which you'll see on your screen, right? But I want you to speak to the data you have. Is it 140 million? Yeah, that's the WhatsApp number. Let us know. Do you have access to power, as the minister said? Then we'll aggregate it and then put it out there. So let us know, send us a message on this line. But Minister, Honorable, what data do you have?
Okay, I don't have a figure that I would like to quote at this point, but what I would like to say is, because of the different programs that are ongoing to provide power to communities, for instance, the Rural Electrification Agency has a World Bank supported funded program to give captive power to different communities. All right, so these are people that if they wait in the queue to get connected to their local distribution networks, the local distribution companies that have been taken over do not have the funding to invest for expansion. So there are agreements between the distribution companies and those that are being licensed by a Rural Electrification Agency to build solar, what we call the mini-grid systems, so that local communities can have power. Those mini-grids are usually handed over to the distribution companies, but are managed within the time that the investment is in, and the local licensee or contractor has put in the investment and recouped his money. So I think it's a 70-30 model that they're using, where the World Bank funds account for 70%, and then the local investor comes up with 30%. So that's going on around the country. Communities that we know that distribution companies will not be able to expand their power to. That's where these mini-grids are being located and taking the daylight and sunlight in solar systems to give power to those communities. And then they now interconnect with the local grid. So because that is ongoing and there are different locations, the calculations of those communities and the numbers of Nigerians getting power in those locations, in addition to the reach in the load centers where distribution companies are able to reach, that's what is accounting for the amount of population. I think 150 million might be on the high side, but of course, you know, in statistics, there are projections. So maybe in their projections, that knowing how many installations have been finished and on stream, that they feel up to 150 million Nigerians have access to it. But some might have not been connected to those local mini-grid systems as we speak. So I would say we as a parliament, we can engage with some of the consultants in the sector to say, let's go around and have more fact-finding on the statement on the minister, and that's our role during our oversight visits. So I can come back to Nigerians probably later when we start our oversight to report back to them that having gone round the different states, as the budget provisions will allow the parliament to, we can reconfirm that the number the minister said is factual or is estimated and just projections from the calculations of total installations of mini-grids around the country.
Honorable Member, Honorable, apparently you are eyes and ears, so we'll hold you to that. And we thank you for coming on the program. Dr. Joshua Gana, Deputy Chairman, House Committee on Power, member representing Lavon Dati Mokwa Federal Constituency in Niger State, also a member of the National Institute in Kurujos. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll switch gears to the politics of Anambra State. In November, the people of Anambra will be heading out to the polls, and they have two choices, either to re-elect Chukwuma Soludo or send him packing and get someone else. So there are people or candidates who have emerged from literally as many political parties as are available in that state to field candidates. One of the candidates will be joining us in just a moment to tell us exactly how she got the ticket and what's the plan ahead. Join us again.